Cygnus Destroyer is back with another retro review, and this is a special episode. This one is a viewer request from Michael Elzy. The reason that I chose to do this request now is that he told me that he's a disabled veteran and that my videos are helping him get through a really tough time in his life. I was really touched by his comment, knowing that this passion of mine is having such an impact in people's lives. That's truly incredible. The least that I could do was give a shout out and review some Batman games for him. Now, this particular episode is only going to deal with one game, and I can't think of a better one to start with than the original NES Batman. Batman the video game was released on December 22nd, 1989 in Japan and February 1990 in the US. It was intended to tie in with the Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson starring film of around the same time. This was the first of 3 NES releases based on the Caped Crusader, the majority of which were published and developed by Sunsoft. Sunsoft had a nearly unrivaled track record on the system, and Batman was a shining example of their brilliance. The title screen track and imagery perfectly set the mood. The Dark Knight and his logos fade into frame as the music slowly builds in intensity. All of the basic elements are very simple, but they weave together to form a very elegant tapestry of NES awesomeness. The title screen transitions to the setup of the story, accompanied with yet another excellent song. We pan over Gotham City, a very dreary and depressing place from the description of it. Everyone is making preparations for the yearly festival, and the evil, twisted Joker has plans of his own for the occasion. The crazed criminal has planted poisonous nerve gas all across the city. It's up to Bruce Wayne's alter ego to stop the villain's plans and avenge the death of his parents in the process. Pushing start brings up an animation of the Batmobile cruising towards its destination and culminates with our hero jumping out, looking all sorts of badass. Bruce drops into frame and off we go into some serious action. Noticeable right from the get-go and frequently addressed by countless reviewers already is that the sprite representation of the iconic DC Comics character is a bit off. He's clearly got a case of the Jason Voorhees going on, meaning that he's ditched the black in favor of purple duds. This is pretty odd, and I have absolutely no idea why Sunsoft went with this decision, especially since he's still clad in the black armor of the film everywhere else on the cart. Regardless, I think it looks cool. The Pew's protagonist has mere moments to get used to his surroundings when the baddies start coming at him. The Justice League member has only a few methods of attack, but he sure makes them count. He has access to 3 different weapon types, which the manual states are his trusty Batarang, a spear gun, and Dirk. Not surprisingly, the Batarang functions like a boomerang. He tosses one and it returns to him soon after. This is my personal favorite, but it has the shortest range. To take out foes at a distance, it's best to go with the latter 2 options. The spear gun, as the name states, shoots out a single spear, making it perfect for avoiding confrontations that are awaiting just off screen. It may not look flashy, but trust me, it's gotten me out of quite a few binds. The Dirk is a triple shot projectile that looks super cool and is quite powerful. However, I kept my usage of the Dirk to a minimum for a reason that is both a pro and a con. All of the weapons are fueled by the pellet meter. The Batarang uses 1 pellet, the spear gun uses 2, and the Dirk takes away 3 with each shot. The maximum number on the meter is 99. But in contrast to his younger sibling, Return of the Joker, the ammunition is limited. I approve of this since it gives the game a sense of realism missing in similar titles in the genre. This also means that if the ammo is emptied during a tricky situation or boss fight, then our hero is totally screwed. Sunsoft made up for this by having a 4th attack, which is also the default, a punch. The punch does some serious damage, and it's super satisfying to crush some faces, but it has an obvious drawback. It's only effective at close range. Going at a boss with nothing but fists is a gamble, since there's an equal chance of the bat taking damage as the enemy. However, I've found that there's a sort of glitch or exploit that makes the Cape Crusader temporarily invincible. If B is constantly spammed in a crouching position, enemies can pass right through him without doing any harm. This isn't much of an issue early on, since everything is very basic and easy, though I would suggest sticking with the punch as much as possible to maintain the ammo meter for later. The Dark Knight's journey is aided by controls that are extremely tight and responsive. As mentioned before, B attacks and A jumps. Pressing A into walls will make him bounce off them, and this works similarly to Ryo Hayabusa and Ninja Gaiden. The amount of force applied to the A button will determine how high Bruce jumps, and mastering this is essential, especially for some really tricky spots near the end. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. One minor nitpick I have with the controls is how the weapons are selected. This isn't accomplished by pressing select as would be expected, but by the start button. As anyone who's picked up an NES controller should know, pausing is normally performed via the start button, so it's instead mapped to select. This is awkward at first, but it doesn't take all that long to get comfortable with it. All in all, the controls are rock solid, but this shouldn't come as a surprise since this was developed by Sunsoft, and Sunsoft equals high quality. The initial stage is composed of 3 parts, and 1-3 concludes with the battle against Killer Moth. First of all, that tune is amazing. Sunsoft had a history of rocking metal-esque fight songs, and this fast-paced, high-energy ditty continued that tradition. Second of all, well, there really isn't a second since Killer Moth is a joke. Just stand in the far left corner and toss the batarang as he gets near. Alternatively, and to make it a bit tougher, stick with the punch and compete in the Fists of Fury challenge that was brought up in the retro community recently. Regardless, Killer Moth goes down quickly and it's on to the next cutscene. Man, he sure knows how to make an entrance. The difficulty increases in Stage 2. The setting is the Axis chemical factory of the movie, so there are more hazards such as toxic pits, dripping slime, and electrified ceilings. The introductory level functions similarly to a tutorial, and this is where things ramp up. The chemical factory provides plenty of opportunities to practice the wall jump, so sharpen those skills because believe it or not, this is nothing in comparison to what comes later. Still, this is quite an increase over what came before, and first-time players will probably die a lot here. Fortunately, there are unlimited continues, so there's no need to worry about failing. Just keep calm and persevere until progress is made. Also, on a side note, I love how he turns into a fiery bat when he dies. It just looks cool. Plus, it has to be noted that the continue screen theme is phenomenal. Give it a listen. Naoki Kodaka, job well done. The level 2 boss is more complicated, with mounted guns and conveyor belts of doom, but just focus on one segment at a time and stay patient until the best opportunity presents itself. The Joker pops up to deliver his trademark line from the Tim Burton film, and we take a trip underground to 3-1. It gets harder and harder from here, beginning with those damned leaping bastards that cling to Bruce like Gollum in the One Ring. Fortunately, they can be maneuvered off screen, but it can be such a pain in the ass to do. This is where the spear gun comes in handy. Batman will travel through the underground and into the cave, fight the electrocutioner, who's a total pushover, head to the laboratory, confront the 2 metal blocks, otherwise known as the dual container alarm, before taking to the air towards the cathedral in the ultimate showdown with the Joker. Spoilers lie ahead, so if you haven't played it and want to keep the rest a surprise until you do, click the box art to skip past this part. Otherwise, let's jump back in with the finale. The cathedral is a nightmare, and the reason that it's a nightmare is because of one thing. Gears, gears, and more gears. Gears are everywhere and at all angles. There are even sideways gears along the walls that our hero has to climb on, and if a wall jump is performed with too much force, then he'll jump right into them and potentially fall below. Not only that, but there are certain sections where it's pretty much impossible to get past without taking a hit. Factor this in with the enemies all around, and the millionaire do-gooder has to go through hell before he even gets to the Joker. Batman's #1 enemy is waiting past the sea of gears and obstructions. But first, Firebug. Firebug isn't that much of a challenge if there are enough health points remaining in the meter. If the meter is full, just stay on him and mash the B button batarang until he's dead. The Joker briefly dishes out an insult, and then it's on to the do-or-die climactic conclusion. Needless to say, the Joker is the antithesis of easy. The battle can be over before it even begins, since one hit from his gun takes away 3 bars of health, not to mention the lightning that rains down from the sky at his command. Get ready to die and die and die again. My best advice, and I believe this is starting to become common knowledge, is to just get up close and personal and wallop him with the fist repeatedly. Ignore the lightning and jump over the bullets if possible. Keep the pressure on him, and sooner or later, it's done. Batman picks up the Joker by the neck, recites his line back at him, and knocks him off the top of the cathedral to the ground below. The Joker is dead, or at least we assume he is, and the credits roll. A proper ending for a magnificent experience. Thus ends one of the best licensed tie-ins of all time. The outcome is expected, but is still very fulfilling. Would you believe, though, that this was not always how it was going to end? A prototype of Batman exists, and the ROM was dumped and made available to the public. While it's mostly the same as what was put out on store shelves, there are some radical differences in regards to the cutscenes. Starting right from the intro, where the overall tone and story is retained, but the wording is a little different, there's a glaring omission in that Batman isn't mentioned at all, nor is the connection of the Joker with the murder of Wayne's parents. The 1-1 prelude is completely different. Instead of the Batmobile heading in to save the day, the titular character is in pursuit of a henchman looking for information in regards to the whereabouts of Vicky Vale. After getting the necessary info, the Guardian of Gotham City leaps from the roof a la a comic splash page and transitions into the drop into 1-1. Comic is the perfect word to describe these, since the artistic style is ripped straight from the panels of a DC book. In many ways, I prefer this to the more refined and dramatic style of the finished game. Granted, some of the drawings are absurdly goofy and there's an English mistake or two, but the narrative is more fleshed out in the prototype. Vicky Vale actually makes an appearance in this early version, whereas she's an afterthought in the released card. Obviously, the finalized cart made some improvements, but I wish they'd kept those present in this ROM. As for the ending, I have mixed feelings towards it, and spoiler warning again before I proceed. 5-1 is unchanged. The gears were a pain in the ass from the very beginning. Ascending the tower triggers a cutscene prior to unleashing Firebug. After clobbering the pest, we return to the Joker. A shadowy figure pops up behind him, which he assumes is his lackey, but it's revealed to be none other than I'm Batman. The Joker is terrified by the discovery, so terrified that he instantly gains 100 pounds or so. The orphan child, now vengeance-seeking adult, cocks his fist and decks the fiend right in the kisser. The screen changes to black and white, and credits. Yes, Firebug was initially the final boss. The Joker only appeared in cinematics. That is incredibly lame. Fortunately, Sunsoft recognized this and the climax became what we know and love. Other than that, everything else is virtually the same. One thing that I thought was interesting is that they changed the patterns of the EEVs. Getting by them is brutal in the prototype since they're always firing their guns. In the finished version, it's much more sporadic. These bastards are just as much of a pain as usual though. Batman for the NES just kicks ass. It's one of the best comic book titles for Nintendo's 8-bit machine or any other console for that matter. It may deviate slightly from the plot of the film, but that doesn't really matter when the quality's this good. To anyone who's never played it before, I would definitely recommend doing so. It can still be picked up for fairly cheap, and I can pretty much guarantee that you'll enjoy it. I would also recommend checking out the ROM of the prototype to view the entirety of the abandoned cutscenes. It's fascinating fascinating to see how the story was originally meant to unfold, and that, along with the top-notch music, programming, and visuals, combined to create a true gem that's a must-own for any retro fans of all ages. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, Michael, and that it brought a little happiness into your day. You can be sure that I'll be reviewing more Batman games in the future. I mean, I have to review Return of the Joker. I played that long before I ever played this, and I have fond memories of it, but that's for another retro review. Now it's time to return to the IUPG Cord. This episode will work as a neat bookend to Super Mario Bros. 2, and I'm really looking forward to working on it. Come back on the 29th for that, but until then, this is Cygnus Destroyer signing out. Thanks for watching, everyone. Come back on the 29th for the next episode of Innocent Until Proven Guilty, but until then, we got these 3 videos for you to watch. On the upper left, that's the last Innocent Until Proven Guilty on Super Mario Bros. 2. A very unexpected game for that series, but I think that it works very well, and I'm very happy with that episode turned out. So if you haven't seen that, you should check that out. You might learn a thing or two from it. Now, on the upper right, speaking of, since Batman is a licensed game, how about that is the top 10 licensed games that get a bad rap. Of course, Batman doesn't get a bad rap because that game's awesome, but I talk about 10 that I think get a bad rap, that are unfairly criticized. So yeah, check that out over there by clicking on the right. And on the bottom left, speaking of licensed games and ones that, well, earn the rap that they get, without spoiling the video too much, it's Back to the Future 2 and 3 for the LJN Defender. So you can watch that by clicking on that right there, the bottom left-hand corner. And of course, as always, for anyone who's new to me and my videos, if you like what you saw, then click that red box there on the bottom right, and that'll subscribe you to the channel, and you'll be able to keep up to date with all my content. So like I said before, come back on the 29th for the next IUPG, and until then, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.